Japan is a wonderful, mysterious place for a lot of people, shrouded in mystery. And there are a lot of opinions out there about Japan. I don't know why, but every country, every culture has their stereotypes, but it seems like Japan, it's like everybody knows or thinks they know something about Japan. There are so many stereotypes, I almost don't know where to begin. But I do know where to begin because I made a list. So I'm going to tell you 8 lies I was told about Japan. The first, and probably the one that I noticed right away, like the day I landed, was the myth that Japanese people are short. That is not true. Go to Sapporo Station, spend even just 10 minutes, but spend an hour in there, and you will find lots of people who are like well over 6 feet tall. Even women. I've seen a lot of women who are like my height. I'm about 5'9", 5'10", and there are like lots of guys who are taller than me, and plenty of women who are like almost my height. This is just portrayed to us in the media. If you've ever seen Lost in Translation, you know what I mean. And it makes me so mad because how has this lots of people come to Japan now. It's a hot spot for tourists. How has this myth still carried on? Haven't enough people come here now that they've seen that it's not true? So I looked online, and apparently Japanese people used to be really short, but because of nutrition, then now they're grown up. Grown up. Japanese people are not short. Second myth, teachers in Japan are really strict. And I think this is kind of a stereotype of Asian cultures in general, that parents and teachers are super strict. I'm actually surprised by how non-strict the teachers are. Like, they kind of let things go that I feel like teachers in Canada would be a lot more about. That's what teachers do, right? But also, I feel like most of the kids don't need strict teachers because the kids are already quite well behaved. So maybe that's because the parents are more strict at home. I don't know. I don't know what goes on in the house. I just see what goes on at school. And yeah, the teachers really are not that strict. But also the students are pretty good, so they don't really need to be. So that was one thing that kind of surprised me a little bit. This one, I even hear other people here in Japan, Japanese people and other foreign teachers say this, that Japanese people are shy. Come on, really? Shyness is not a... Shyness is a personality trait. Shyness is not bound by culture. There's no such thing as like a shy culture. I feel like the reason people think that Japanese people are shy is because, generally Japanese people keep to themselves. They're not so outgoing with people who they don't know. So it's just kind of more of a cultural thing of keeping to yourself and not really putting yourself out there and being like, hey, look at me. Oh, hey, stranger, I want to be your friend. But yeah, people think Japanese people are shy. Hey, listen, I teach from age 2 up to, well, adults technically, but in like the public schools, I teach junior high and elementary and nursery school. I can tell you, Japanese people are not shy. Next. Myth number 4. People stare at you if you're a foreigner, especially in the countryside. This might be true in some places, actually. And actually, I have to kind of take this one back a little bit. I kind of compiled this list before I took my summer vacation to another part of Hokkaido. Here, where I am, there is a pretty big ski resort. And then there is an even bigger ski resort, not too far away, which is like the most popular ski resort probably in Japan, but at least the most popular in Hokkaido. So I feel like people where I live are used to seeing foreigners, so they will not give you a second glance if you're a foreigner. They are used to seeing foreigners. However, this depends on which part of Japan you're in, because when I was on my vacation in Tokachi area, I got a lot of looks. I got a lot of stares. So I think they don't get a lot of foreigners out there. I mentioned this briefly in the video I made about my time there. But yeah, but this just goes to show that stereotypes really don't hold, because just because something is true in one part of Japan, it might not be true in another part of Japan. But it's not fair to say something about Japan and say, "Oh, well, it might not apply everywhere, but some places it does." Well, then like it's still all Japan. So if I feel like in order for a stereotype to really be true, it has to apply like everywhere you go. And I don't think any stereotype does. So like no. Anyway, never mind. Uh, Next, myth number 5, I think. Related to the last point, the next myth is that there are very few foreigners living in Japan. Now, my village has about 1,000 people, and I have 2 grade 4 students who are half Japanese. One of them was born in Australia, has an Australian father. She speaks fluent English. Then there is a boy in the same class, and his father is from Belgium. So he speaks French. And then I also have a couple of nursery school kids whose mother is half Polish. So she's from Poland, married a Japanese man, and now lives here in the village. Oh, and then there is also a black family who lives in the apartment complex right across from mine. Oh, and their little girl also started coming to my nursery school. Now, my village is a bit of a special case because of the ski resort, so a lot of these foreign people who live here are somehow involved working at the ski resort. But again, like the last point, it's not really fair to generalize a country by stereotypes that only apply in certain places. So yeah, probably lots of places in Japan, and it's not like it's just my village, by the way. I was talking to some other teachers, and they also have some mixed kids in their classes, so it's definitely not just my place that is the exception. So definitely not true. Japan is a lot more diverse than you think. Next, number 7, I think. People eat a lot of sushi here. This was never really something I was told about Japan. I guess this was just an assumption that I had, so maybe it's not fair to call it a lie I was told. But because sushi seems to be the single most popular Japanese food outside of Japan, I think a lot of people have this impression that it's kind of like people eat sushi every day here, and that there's just sushi restaurants everywhere. Not so. There actually are not as many sushi restaurants as I was expecting, except for the really touristy areas that are catering to people who want an authentic Japanese experience. But really, people here don't eat sushi all the time. Um, yeah, in fact, actually, this does kind of fit the mold of lies I was told about Japan, because somebody actually did tell me when I was in Canada. They said, "Oh yeah, sushi is kind of just like fast food for them." Wrong. Ramen is fast food for them, and any kind of convenience store food, which is really good, by the way. Uh, oh, actually, that could have been a ninth lie I was told about Japan, is that the convenience stores are like, a godsend and like Disneyland, when actually it's just kind of your town fair. They're really not that special. They're not that much better than convenience stores from Canada. So, sorry. Bonus myth for you there. And finally, myth 8, or 9 now, since I added that bonus myth for you, is that it's expensive. Oh my goodness, people who think Japan is expensive, why do you think that? I feel like the only people who actually think Japan is expensive are the people who have gone to Tokyo, went to the Tokyo Tower and the Tokyo Sky Tree, and went on their travel app and went to the first Michelin-starred restaurant that was recommended to them. Those are the people who think Japan's expensive. Oh, and everybody who's never been to Japan, because those people who've done that expensive stuff are the ones who, make the blogs and make everybody believe that Japan is expensive. Listen, some things are expensive here. CDs are really expensive, but overall, it's quite a bit cheaper than living in Canada. As for the US, I really don't know because I've never lived in the US before. But yeah, I really don't know where this myth comes from. I think maybe Japan was expensive 10 years ago, but they haven't had any inflation for 10 years. In fact, they've had some deflation. So I actually read a blog article by this one lady. She argued that Japan is the cheapest developed country you can go to. And I would say that I would agree with that. I haven't been to many other countries, but it definitely seems about right. Uh, yeah, and you might be thinking, well, you haven't been anywhere outside Hokkaido, so how would you know? Well, hey, I booked a hostel in Osaka because I'm going there in the winter, 2,000 yen per night. So yeah, I really think it's just kind of the touristy stuff. Why do I keep doing this with my arms? It's the touristy stuff that's, is always the most expensive. So that's what gives people the idea that it's really expensive. But anyway, I'm rambling now. Hope you enjoyed this, if anybody watches it. Uh, 13 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. But I hope you come to Japan, and I hope that you. And that is where my phone ran out of memory. So I was pretty much done anyway, but it seemed like kind of an inappropriate way to end a video, to just abruptly cut off like that. So here is a proper ending. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.